So last time we have set up the HTML and created all of the files that we're going to be needing for this project. Now we can officially start working on the actual content in the HTML. So you can see I'm in the folder vanilla chess, and I'm just going to go into my text editor by pressing HX here, Helix text editor. And here, let me just open the index.html. Also, I would want to go here and I would want to just start live HTML. So I'm just going to start the server so that I can view the changes live. And I'm going to click on the local host here. It opens in my browser. So this is where we left off last time. Now, what I want to do is the first thing is I want to just remove this attribute lang en. I just don't want to confuse you with anything that's not really going to show up on screen. I want to make this as easy as to follow as possible. So after that, let me just get into the body and let's remove the h1 that we had. So if I save it, you can see there's nothing here. Okay, great. So now I want to go to the body, and since in chess you have a board, I would want to have something representing a board. I'm going to create a div and I'm just going to give it a class. I'm going to call the class board, and I'm just going to close the div. Okay, simple, just a board. Now, if I just save this, right, and if I go to the browser, there's nothing here because a div itself does not have any sort of visible content. The elements inside of it will give it its shape, but we're going to be changing that in a minute. Probably not today though. So after the board, we could go and just create a single row, right? So div class board underscore row. So this is the sort of convention I'm going to be using throughout this tutorial series, where I'm just going to be having underscore to separate child elements. So from here, I want to go inside and we need a square. So think of a chessboard, right? So a chessboard is just a board having multiple rows, and you can search for this if you're not really familiar with chess. And each row has its own square, has 8 squares. So we have to create 8 squares here. So I can just say div class board row square. Okay. Let me just close this. Now we are done. Basically, we have everything we need, but we have to duplicate this a couple of times. So I'm just going to select everything here, and I'm just going to copy it. For some reason that didn't work well. Okay, yeah. So here I need it 8 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I have 8 squares. Now in chess, one row has 8 squares and there are 8 rows in total. So what I need to do is I need to go to the top here and I need to select everything, right? So I'm going to select everything here. Then from this point, I can easily just copy this and I can start pasting. So I paste 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now there seems to be a bit of a formatting error. It doesn't really matter. It's not going to break anything. It's just a formatting error. In HTML, by the way, the formatting, the line indentation and stuff doesn't really matter. Even if you have it in a weird sort of way, it doesn't matter. Mostly, it doesn't matter in most programming languages. But there are some, like Python, for example, that really depend on the indentation. But note that I'm doing all of this just to keep it clean and easy to read, and not really to just make this any sort of functional. So we have all of our squares here. So in total, there are 64 squares. And this is the beauty and ugliness of HTML. You can see the beauty in which you can see everything here. It's rendered. There is nothing hidden from you. And the ugliness in its repetitiveness sometimes. So I'm just going to save this and let's see what we have. And as you would expect, there is nothing here because obviously a div has no visible properties. But if I right click and go to the inspect, you can press F12 also, I believe. Let me just remove this. And if I go into the inspector here, let me just dock this to the right. And inside of the body, there is a div called board. Inside of the board, by the way, don't worry about the script. This is just something injected from the live HTML just to make the hose reload work. Don't really worry about that. So inside of the board, we have 8 rows. Inside of each row, we have 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 squares. So 64 squares in total. So everything here is actually working as it's supposed to work. But the problem is nothing really is visible. And that is going to be changed primarily with CSS. And its functionality will come primarily from JavaScript. Now, saying this, there is one more thing we have to do inside of the HTML, and that is name the rows and the squares. So what does that mean? That means that each row, if you're familiar with chess again, you will understand this. Each row has a name. The first row in the first column has the name A1, and the last one, the last row in the last column, sorry, the last square in the last row has the name H8. So if I'm not mistaken there. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to give it some data. So I'm going to call this data slash name. Okay, so data name. Again, actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to say data row. Okay. So the better way of doing this, I think, and we might change it in the future, is to come to the row and say data row 1. So this will be row 1. This data row is called a data attribute, and it's just a way of giving additional information regarding the elements that is selected. So in this case, we are giving the div element some additional information, right? So we are telling the div you are row 1. So let's just keep on doing that. Let's see data row 2 and data row 3. So again, I'm going to be continuing to do this for all of the rows up to row 8. So this data row could be used in JavaScript to get information. For example, we want to know in chess that if the element selected could go to a certain place, right? So we can check the rows and columns. Columns, when I say columns, I mean the squares, right? So we can check the rows and columns to actually know what to actually get the data if the square is free, if the object could move to that square and stuff like that. So 8 rows. I seem to have mistakenly put in another row here, so perhaps let me delete this. Okay, that's great. So now we have the information here. So if I go, you can see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rows. Now great. So now we can come over here and apply the same thing here, but this time for each square, I'm going to give it a data column. So columns are denoted by letters in chess, like A, B, C, D, and rows are denoted by numbers. So data column here, A, data column B, and if we have done this correctly, we should have 8 columns, meaning up to H. So A, B, C. Again, the data slash is the only important part, right? I can name this whatever I want. I could call it square, I could call it X, but the data slash, the data hyphen is very important. And that is the only way JavaScript could know that this is actually a data attribute and not just another attribute like class, ID, and stuff. So the data attributes is special in this way, in the way that it carries information that is easily accessible through JavaScript. So let me finish off here, E, F, G here, and H finally. So we are correct. Okay, so instead of doing the same thing for all of them, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select this. I'm going to select everything here, and I'm going to just copy this, and the easiest way to do this, I believe, would be probably to just paste it here, and yeah, let me just paste them around. Okay, first I'm gonna fix that in a moment. Okay, some mistake here. Okay, and now I could just remove the extra ones and fix the formatting a bit here. Again, the formatting does not matter, but the actual content inside that you have inside does matter. So you have to make sure that your content itself is properly formatted, not formatted, sorry, it's properly written out. So yeah, so I really recommend you to use a not heavy text editor, like VS Code and stuff like that. I really recommend you to use something like Notepad, or something like that, without much abstractions, right? I personally I use Helix, and I'm actually new to Helix. It's been like a couple of weeks, and I know that what I'm doing itself here, it might not be the best way of doing stuff. There's probably a better way of doing this, but you know, we will improve with time when you're using any sort of new technology that you're not familiar with. And I believe that's the best way. Don't worry about like memorizing syntax and stuff. Just know the basics of coding. And when I mean basics, I mean the basic, with a very basic syntax. And after you know that, just be familiar with like paradigms of programming, like how to think as a programmer. I think that's more important than just thinking of the code syntax and writing code. I think problem solving is the more important part. So as we can see here, we have A to H. So on each row, also you could have done this probably with JavaScript. I just wanted to not really confuse you with JavaScript that could be done in HTML. Again, it is a bit repetitive, but uh, HTML just gives you controls. That's the best part. So now in JavaScript, we can query for any square, right? For example, if I query for this square, I could just say, this is D3, right? So, or 3D, but I think in chess notation it's D3. So if I wanted to go another way, I can call this A6, right? And so now I have all the information I need from my HTML so that I can easily work with JavaScript in terms of the squares. Okay, so let me just save this, and I think that's enough for today. Next time, we're probably going to be starting with the CSS. Since we have all of the HTML that we need, not all, there might be some changes in the future, but basically now we have everything that we need to get started with the CSS. So that's going to be what we start next time. Thanks for watching. Until next time, goodbye.